Giganotosaurus, the dinosaur that would have easily killed a T-Rex. The late Cretaceous period was a golden age for reptilian predators, from the dictatorial Tyrannosaurus to the soaring Quetzalcoatlus to the mighty mosasaurs of the deep. Doubtless, creatures great and small lived most of their lives with one eye over their shoulders. Today, we turn our attention to another fearsome carnivore of prehistoric proportions, an animal that up until recently hadn't been given due recognition and respect. A hunter whose power and ferocity may have not only matched the T-Rexes, but quite possibly have been greater. Ladies and gentlemen, vertebrates and invertebrates, we would like to formally introduce you to the extinct ruler of South America's wilderness, Giganotosaurus. Let's get started. What is a Giganotosaurus? The term Giganotosaurus, which translates to giant southern lizard, is actually the genus name of a theropod dinosaur from the Carcharodontosauridae family. There is only one species in the genus, Giganotosaurus carolini. The dinosaur's fossils were officially discovered on the 25th of July, 1993, by fossil hunter Ruben Dario Carolini in Patagonia, southern Argentina. To this day, the bones discovered add up to a skeleton that is just over 2/3 complete, featuring bits of the skull, lower jaws, backbone, pelvis, and hind legs. Today, the fossil specimen is housed at the Ernesto Bachmann Paleontological Museum in Villa El Chocón, Argentina, next to a reconstruction of a full Giganotosaurus skeleton. Carolini's findings were useful in identifying a mysterious discovery, a jawbone fragment labeled as MUCPV-95, made a few years earlier in 1987 near Carolini's Giganotosaurus. Comparisons between the Giganotosaurus's jawbone and MUCPV-95 showed that they belonged to individuals of the same species. The difference? MUCPV-95 was 8% larger than Carolini's jawbone, suggesting that these creatures grew bigger than the 1993 discovery. There have been several other fossil finds in and around the Patagonia area, but these are largely isolated parts, like teeth, some vertebrae, limbs, and other random parts. Nothing close to Carolini's find has been unearthed, but paleontologists still scour the region in hope of a gold mine. This lack of specimens has left the subject of Giganotosaurus open to speculation regarding aspects of size, proportions, as well as behavior and mannerisms. Size in particular is a hotbed of debate. Famed paleontologists Rodolfo Curia and Philip J. Curie, discoverers of a handful of gigafossils, were the first to propose that Giganotosaurus was larger than the Tyrannosaurus rex, largely believed to be the largest terrestrial carnivore of all time. Based on samples of teeth and backbone, they concluded that Giganotosaurus would have reached a nose-to-tail length of 45 to 47 feet and a maximum weight of 16,000 pounds. At the time, the T-Rex is believed to have maxed out at just under 16,000 pounds with a length of up to 39 feet. The turn of the millennium saw other paleontologists subscribe to this school of thought based on influences like leg bones, fossilized footprints, strides, and most commonly, skull length. The skull length of Carolini's Giganotosaurus was estimated at 5 feet long, and using similar proportionality, the jaw fragment MUCPV-95 was estimated to belong to an animal with a 6-foot skull. Additionally, the femur of the 1993 Giganotosaurus was longer than that of Sue, a well-preserved T-Rex specimen that was a standard bearer of Tyrannosaur physiology in the 1990s and early 2000s. Of course, there are opposing voices on the other end of the debate, in light of new T-Rex discoveries. Paleontologists argue that while the Giganotosaurus was perhaps longer than the T-Rex, the latter had a wider frame that would support a bulkier build. Skull shapes also suggest that Giganotosaurus had a longer skull, but the T-Rex's skull was wider to support stronger jaw muscles and greater downforce. Furthermore, scientists in the T-Rex is bigger camp argue that, like with the Giganotosaurus, there could be more T-Rex fossils yet to be discovered, so no one knows how big they got. Questions also arise over the greater degree of speculation surrounding Giganotosaurus's makeup, most of which is based on models inferred from one incomplete specimen and fragmented bones. T-Rex has more fossils and a greater number of specimens, allowing for more educated speculations and theories. What we do know for sure is that the Giganotosaurus was a massive apex predator that would have reigned supreme in its environment, preying on anything it could catch and overpower with devastating brutality. Recently, Giganotosaurus has been cast into the limelight as an A-list dinosaur in pop culture, mainly because of its villainous role in the 2022 film Jurassic World: Dominion. In the movie, which will be kept relatively spoiler-free, The Giganotosaurus is described as the biggest carnivore the world has ever seen, and it more than holds its own against an angry T-Rex. Where did the Giganotosaurus live? Based on paleontological findings, the Giganotosaurus was native to central to southern parts of South America, in what is modern-day Argentina and Chile. The soil and rock deposits in the Candelores Formation, the site in which most Giganotosaurus fossils have been found, suggest the region had abundant river systems. This would have supported nutrient-rich plant life that in turn provided food for the herbivorous animals that the massive theropod preyed upon. Further evidence of fluvial environments is found in the presence of crocodiliform fossils in the formation. As the name suggests, crocodiliforms are a great ancestor to the water-dwelling crocodilians of today. The region would have had warm temperatures and maybe even dry seasons, but it was comprised largely of wetlands that gave rise to dense vegetation. Swampy regions may have been present too. What did Giganotosaurus eat? If the notion of the Giganotosaurus being an apex predator was true, then it would have eaten whatever it chose. Paleontologists are certain the great theropod was an active hunter, as predators of that size could hardly depend on scavenging alone. Of course, this monster would not have been above eating things that were already dead, or even scaring smaller predators away from their kills. Tooth fossils show that the beast had narrow and serrated teeth that were up to 8 inches long. This style of tooth implies that it was a hack-and-slash specialist, ripping off flesh with grisly ease. Giganotosaurus' narrow and long jaws indicate that it used speed over power when it came to clamping shut, and these snappy jaws would have brought agonizing death to many a poor soul. So what exactly did this dinosaur eat? Based on its size, the Giganotosaurus would have been able to tackle some of the large herbivorous dinosaurs in its domain. These include rebacosaurids like Nopcaspondylus and Lamesaurus, as well as megasauropods like Andosaurus. The Giganotosaurus would likely have aimed for weaker individuals or juveniles, especially when it came to huge sauropods. Other menu items included smaller predatory dinosaurs, like Dilophosaurus, and even mammals. How the Giganotosaurus hunted is another mystery to experts. Most agree that it was likely an ambush hunter lying in wait among the thick trees of the forest before unleashing its lightning-fast jaws. Its long legs also suggest that it may have been a chaser as well, although this is contested. Doubters of this theory argue that an adult Giganotosaurus bones were too dense and heavy to sustain significant running. Perhaps they walked down lumbering prey like titanosaurs without the need to sprint. Proponents of the chase theory believe that Giganotosaurus' height and frame would have allowed it to run at speeds above 30 miles per hour, most likely in short bursts. New evidence on the T-Rex may also shed light on how Giganotosaurus hunted. The former is now believed to have had soft padding beneath its feet to aid with stealth, a far cry from the puddle-rippling thuds shown in the movies. If Giganotosaurus had this feature too, it's possible that the 15,000-pound executioner snuck up on its victims. Another interesting thing surrounding the concentration of Giganotosaurus fossils in Patagonia is the possibility that it may have lived and hunted in packs of numerous individuals. Fossils of bones belonging to Giganotosauruses of different sizes suggest that there were individuals of varying ages in the same space, which is fair evidence for pack life. If the Giganotosaurus lived in packs, then it could have had access to even more varied ways of hunting than a lone hunter, as well as access to even larger prey. The Giganotosaurus killed by using its massive jaws and teeth to clamp down on a victim's neck or other exposed weak points like the underbelly. With its serrated chompers and powerful bite force, it would have torn off chunks of flesh and severed major blood vessels. Smaller prey animals like Dilophosaurs would have had their bones and spinal columns snap under its awesome bite power. For larger prey, like maturing Andosaurs and Argentinosaurs, the Giganotosaurus may have slashed at vulnerable sides and legs to wear victims down. However, full-grown megasauropods would have been an immense challenge for even this apex predator. Therefore, experts theorize that the Giganotosaurus would have targeted frail, young, and elderly sauropods. Giganotosaurus was also armed with formidable hind limbs. These legs were responsible for supporting and hauling its hulking size, but they may have played a more lethal role in the hunt. With 3-clawed toes and an estimated foot length of over 20 inches, the Giganotosaurus could have leaped up at larger prey and rivals to stab and slash. Due to the small nature of its arms, Giganotosaurus may have also used its legs to pin down smaller animals to allow it to deliver killing blows with its jaws. Studies indicate that the Giganotosaurus was actually warm-blooded, which means it could regulate its body temperature, unlike many modern reptiles like snakes and crocodilians. Being warm-blooded also suggests that it had a fairly fast metabolism, which allowed it to grow quickly, but also demanded that it eat fairly regularly as well. Who were the Giganotosaurus' rivals? Despite all the constant comparisons and simulated face-offs with the T-Rex, the Giganotosaurus never lived in the same environment nor the same time. The former would have only emerged in North America about 30 million years after the latter's extinction in South America. Giganotosauruses would have shared environments with other carcharodontosaurids like Mappasaurus, another megatheropod that competed for the same prey. Fossil evidence suggests that Mappasaurus was a highly social creature that lived and hunted in packs. Another notable rival class would have been abelisaurs, predatory theropods who would have preyed upon immature Giganotosauruses. The 30-foot Giganotosaurus, which existed between 100 million and 93 million years ago, is a noted example. However, the most famous abelisaur is the horned Carnotaurus, also of Jurassic movie fame, which is slightly smaller than Giganotosaurus. With so many contenders for food chain dominance, immature or weakened Giganotosauruses certainly had to keep their wits about them.